Hi, I'm Caleb Michael, and this is a little exploration game prototype I've been working on. Everything is kit bashed from mainly just one asset kit, which is a big ruins asset, which you can see. Um, all the lighting comes from these torches, except for a little flashlight the player has. Now, the first ruin the player encounters is impossible to pass until you learn how to jump, and so I just wanted the player to teach the player some basic movement at first. And then next, they will notice this room, which has a door which they can currently not open, but they can find another exit to the left. And there, at this point, we know the player knows how to jump, and so I wanted to expand on that and do it in a place where there's a lot more risk. This risk comes from a lava pit at the bottom, which the player can see, and whenever the player dies, this respawns back at the And the reason the player wants to make this jump in the first place is that they can see a key on the other side. And so when they successfully make that jump, they can pick up the key and then must backtrack back to the door they found earlier. And when they walk up to it, the door automatically opens. And when they enter this room, it's a much larger room than what they're used to. And the first thing they'll see is a sword on the other side. They can also find a door, but currently have no key. And this sword, due to its height, there's no really way to access it currently. The player can't really find a way to get up there. But while they're looking for a way, they might notice a potion off to the left. And when they go to pick up this potion, a skull comes to life and starts attacking them. The skull will just chase around the player, and whenever they're close to the player, it will deal damage. But now that the player has this potion, what it allows them to do is actually jump higher. And with that added jump, they can now make the parkour in order to try to make it to the sword. And it's still, again, just expanding on what the player has already been taught. And in this case, it's much more parkour, and also they have the added difficulty of trying to avoid a enemy that's shaped. Once the player picks up a sword, now just fight the enemy by just trying to deal more damage by clicking more than it deals damage to them, and the enemy drops his key. They can use his key to open the door into this room, and you can see that the level status is now complete as this room is filled with Shredder. Now that I showed you a playthrough, I just want to go more into the enemy's behavior. So whenever the player gets too close to the enemy will light into flames and start chasing the player. Now, one thing I think is cool is that the enemy actually has a attention span, and if the player avoids the enemy for long enough and stays out of the radius of attention, then eventually the enemy will deactivate, which you can see here as the fire turns back into smoke. And so whenever the enemy is deactivated, it would smoke. When the player approaches the enemy again, it lights back up. And the enemy itself will just chase the player all throughout the room, and whenever it's close enough, like I said, it just deals damage. It deals damage pretty quickly, and the player can fight back once they have the sword by just clicking and hitting the enemy. And it's more just trying to click as fast as you can when the enemy kills you. Now I want to break down some of the extra details in the level. So for example, all the fallen pillars you can actually see where they've broken out of the ground. Broken out of the wall, which I think is pretty cool. I think it adds a lot of extra character. You can also even see the rubble that's fallen due to the fallen pillars. Another detail I'm very happy about is the foreshadowing with the enemy. Earlier in the map, you can find a skull that is caged in, and so I like to think that this skull never came to life because it could never escape. Whereas later, where you encounter the actual enemy, you can find what used to be a cage that is now broken through, and that's where the actual enemy spawns, and so I like to think it escaped and attacks you. And that is all I currently have for this project. While the game itself is currently small, I'm still very happy with the kit bashing and also the level design and just the progress of obstacles that the player encounters. And I think this is a great foundation for a larger game, and I would love to expand on it more. Thank you very much for watching, and I really do hope you enjoy what you've seen, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.